listening to Niagara Votes 2015. Your vote, your voice. Candidate profile. Niagara Center with Tim Dennis.
All of this week, Niagara Center is what we're focusing on, and this morning, the Green Party candidate in Niagara Center is David Clow, and joins us in studio. For the first little bit, he and I will chat. In the meantime, if you have a question for David as a Niagara Center candidate, or as a Green Party candidate, or just a question about the election in general to David, and remember these are should be centered around Niagara Center, you can either give us a call at 688-2582, or you can send me a text immediately at 61010, or an email at tdennis@610ckTB.com, and we'll ask David those questions as we go. We welcome David Clow of the Green Party. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You have been doing some interesting nights the last little while. It's something that I don't think I've seen in a candidate in a federal election before. What have you been doing?
Well, I've been sleeping outside on the ground, trying to raise awareness to issues that I think have been not getting the attention they deserve in this election, both regionally and nationally, and I'm dedicating each night to a different one of these issues. The first night was murdered and missing indigenous women. The second night was homeless. Last night I slept next to the Atlas Steel plant, which is one of the brownfields that are scattered throughout this area, and I talk a lot about sacrifice zones, and so last night I dedicated my night on the ground to the folks that are currently without jobs or working precarious jobs because of the polluted industrial lands here that corporations can't willfully take on the liability involved with them.
So let's talk about those issues, all three of those issues that you just brought up. Let's talk about last night. You're next to what used to be Atlas Steel.
Yes, sir.
In Welland. And you're saying that the corporations have not taken responsibility, and that's contributed to some of the lack of jobs in the region. Explain that, David.
Well, for example, one of the issues I have, I'm born in the Port Colborne. I was born in the Port Colborne Hospital. Grew up in the Rodney Street community the first couple of years of my life.
And for people who don't know, that's the area in and around what used to be,
the
Incremental Nickel.
Inco,
yeah.
The Inco, the company itself is in fact owned by a Brazilian mining company called Vale. People call it the Vale Center, but it's in fact Vale. The company is one of the worst as far as environmental and human rights records go.
Here or international?
Mostly abroad, but the only reason there's not news stories about it locally is because we don't have people like myself doing what I'm doing now and being vocal about that. What I'm aiming to do here is to put a huge amount of pressure on the federal government, which they do. They do. Brownfield remediation is a very real thing. I interviewed Elizabeth May last week about it, and I said, what are we going to do here in Niagara to bring these jobs back? And her immediate response was the brownfield remediation. She's very familiar with what's going on here. We can go to the federal government. We can say, we have these polluted lands. We don't have any corporations coming back because there's just too much cost involved, too much risk.
So companies are coming in and they're looking at this available land, whether it be Atlas, John Deere, or what have you, and saying, it'd be a great place to put a plant, but it's brownfield, and we can't afford to clean it up.
And not only that, it may be initially assumed to be brownfields, but when they come in, before they can even think about purchasing this, you have to do assessments. These assessments, and from what I've been hearing from people who've worked in these places, and this is a very reliable information, that there's been all kinds of these ravines and stuff dug deep underground, and all these poisons have been dumped. When these companies come in, they're going to pay a huge amount of money to do an assessment, go through this process, and perhaps find out that they're not brownfields and that they're far worse, and that money was wasted. So instead of doing that, these companies will opt for what are called green fields, which are just green lands, or gray fields, which are old parking lots and stuff where they don't have to worry about that. The empty gas stations around here are also brownfields because they have these issues. It's just huge cost involved, and the companies aren't going to do that. So if we force the federal government to come in, provide sustainable, maintainable sustainable jobs to do true bioremediation, not remediation where we pile poison to the sky behind Walmart and take on more poison, but phytoremediation where we plant a vegetation that will suck these heavy metals from the ground, and we create long-term jobs. And by doing that, we force the federal government to go after these companies like Vale. And when you do go after them, they do pay.
One of your other issues that you slept out to bring attention to, the lack of investigation, the lack of national attention paid to missing and murdered Indigenous women. Tell me a little bit about your situation there.
Well, if you look at what's going on right now with our current government, they're selling light armored vehicles to Saudi Arabia. They're our partners. Saudi Arabia is, again, another country that has human rights record of just pure atrocities. You're not allowed to drive a car in Saudi Arabia if you're a woman. You can be beheaded or stoned. Even right now, there's a young man was arrested at 17 years old. He's about to be crucified and beheaded over pro-democracy rallies. Now, if our governments are saying they want to protect women's rights and bringing up this issue about the niqab, the headgear that these women are wearing, then why are they selling armored vehicles to this country? You know, this divide between what they're claiming and what's actually taking place is a real issue. And if Stephen Harper said that these missing and murdered women, we're talking over 1,200 missing and murdered Indigenous women, over 200 just in 2014 alone, confirmed by the RCMP, and he said that wasn't even on his radar. So there's a real problem with what's being put forward to the public and what's the actual truth. And currently, the Liberal and the NDP alternatives are pretty much as silent on these issues.
Stephen Harper said, I think it was an article in the Globe and Mail yesterday,
Yep.
that he felt that a number of these the cases that had been brought to the attention of Canadians in the last few weeks had already been solved.
Yeah. Well, and he also said that he said a few different points with regard to that, and it's again, this is just his backpedaling. The same thing you can see what he's doing with regard to the TPP. Oh, I'm doing a wonderful thing by providing all this money, for auto industry, for the dairy industry, but that money is a bribe for something that's really a horrific situation. So we have to look at the take-home message, the derivatives. We have to look logically at what are we getting? What's really happening? So this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm here.
David Clow is the Niagara Centre Green Party candidate. We'll continue with him. If you've got some questions, send me a text right now at 61010. Send me a phone call if you wish, and we'll put you on and talk to David coming up right after this break. 688-2582 is the phone number, and we'll get back to David right after this. We'll check the traffic right now with the latest. Here's Jeremy Elliott.
We'll start with the Kiwi.
With David Clow of the Green Party right after this.
Hi, I'm... Okay, back after this, guys.
I think you'll need your headphones in this first section because I've got a phone call.
Drama that critics can't stop talking about.
We are officially in code black.
Poised for success, gritty and engaging, irresistible.
I'm going to die.
Get him out of here! The heart-pounding, can't-miss drama continues in the nation's most notorious ER.
Get in here now! God.
Oscar winner Marcia Gay Harden stars in an all-new episode of Code Black, tonight at 10 on CTV.
You're listening to Niagara Votes 2015. Your vote, your voice. Candidate profile. Niagara Center with Tim Dennis.
And our guest today, David Clow of the Green Party in Niagara Centre. And of course, if you've got a question, you can call 688-2582, or you can text me a question at 61010. We'll start off with Liz, who is calling with a question for David. Liz, good morning.
Good morning, Tim. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Liz.
I've noticed that there's been a total lack of any issues relating to the community of disabled persons. What exactly is the Green Party and your policy on poverty and disabled people?
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. I very much appreciate that question, Liz, because I'm not sure if you know her or not, but I'm disabled. I use a wheelchair. I have an incomplete quadriplegia, and this is actually what got me started politically about 7 years ago. I'm in a wheelchair right now that's pretty damaged, and for about 20 years I've been repairing the exact same thing on this wheelchair, and every time I do, I have to get 3 quotes, and those 3 quotes are providing money for other people, but the wheelchair breaks down the same way. There's only one spot that repairs the wheelchair here, so the other 2 quotes are moot. They're not, they shouldn't be necessary. But there's a problem because when I went to and I complain about this, they say, well, go complain to your MP. I go to the MP, I get nothing. So this is why I'm here, ma'am. And the Green Party is the only party that's talking about, you know, a national seniors plan, pharmacare, Medicare plan, where we can have these national plans that will be in place, a national senior strategy, and further to that, a guaranteed livable income, because it's not just about seniors and disabled. Everyone needs to be having a guaranteed livable income. If my mom right now has a head full of tumors, she worked at the hospital as on the cleaning staff. Now she was refused disability. She's having a hard time making ends meet. My dad's not able to work because he has to care for her, and she can't even afford her cancer medication. They're making decisions with regard to, you know, paying their second mortgage or being able to afford medication, and it's like, this is why I'm doing this. We need to have someone who will be out there in the House saying, what are we doing? Let's solve these issues right now. And when I hear the other parties, it's all contingencies. It's all if-then.
Thank you, David. This one comes from, actually doesn't tell me, but it's one of 2 or 3 in a row here that says basically the same thing. What is the Green Party's policy for gun control, David? Well,
the Green Party is against guns, and I'll have to agree with that here in Canada. But I also appreciate this question very much, because I'm not here to tell people we're going to do this or we're going to do that. And I don't believe that any party should be able to do that. I am asking to represent you regionally. That means I'm going to put forward your voice in the House. The other parties, the NDP, Liberal and Conservative, they're all going to be whipped. There's a member of the caucus that forces them to vote in line with the party. Elizabeth May gave me a phone call a few weeks back and said, I'm sorry about the difficulty with you getting into the Green Party with the investigation, because I'm so vocal and I'm a little bit controversial. But she said, you know what? We're not going to whip you. We're not going to tell you what to do. And in a place like America, where there's all kinds of criminals with guns, they're not going to listen to gun control laws that say that you can't carry guns. So in that instance, in America, I wouldn't really be for gun control. But in Canada, where there's not really a lot of guns, and allowing more guns to make it to the streets here, I think could be a huge detriment. And again, this is not, I am all for, and this is what's so different than myself and the Green Party and the other parties. The Green Party is the party of dialogue. I'm not for conjecture. I'm not for opinion. I'm for expertise, research-based evidence. So we work together. I'm going to have a town hall meeting once a week where the community can come to me and say, this is what we want. And then that's what I'll put forth.
Ron is calling this morning with a question on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP. Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, David, thank you for taking my call. David, they've just signed the agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This opens up a market of 800 million people to import and export. Thomas Mulcair says this has been a very secretive thing. However, Stephen Harper says that everything has to be signed by Congress. So I would say that everything's going to be opened up, and you're going to know, everybody's going to know what's happening there. How do you feel about this partnership, this Trans-Pacific Partnership? Is it just as good as the North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement? I leave it to you now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron.
Well, sir, I appreciate this question very much. It's a contentious issue, and again, I would have to say, this is not something we need to rush through. This is not something. It shouldn't have happened the way it did. It shouldn't have happened, especially at this time. And in my opinion, I think the TPP is equivalent to corporate protectionism. Only 6 of the 30 chapters are actually on trade. it's going to end up with the CBC and Canada Post being gone. And again, the other candidates are going to talk about those issues, but they're going to fail to address the real issue, which is austerity measures. Our laws will be able to be overturned to maximize corporate profit. This gives up our sovereignty to foreign corporate interests. This is going to lead to a mass migration of Canadian jobs. There's going to be blocked websites and so much more. The legal experts are about to comb through all this hidden legislation. If this was really protecting farmers, then why were they converging on the Parliament? This is such a contentious issue. And when you see Stephen Harper saying, "Oh, look what we're going to do. We're going to provide all this funds," that's a bribe, folks. And when you see that when you're buying when a car has a commercial on TV and the car's not reliable, their commercials are going to be about how reliable the car is. And we need to be able to pay attention to that. And that's what's happening right now with this Conservative government. We need to pay a little bit more close attention to what is in this legislation before we allow it to be rushed through. And we need to make sure that this is repealed right now or held up. I'm not sure what the next steps will be, but again, it shouldn't be happening during an election.
David Clow is the Green Party candidate in Niagara Centre. When you go door to door, David, and I asked this of Ms. Malella yesterday and Mr. Allen of the NDP on Monday. The economy tends to be what's top of mind for people at the moment. Obviously, jobs and those kinds of issues. We touched on that a little bit. Do you find people saying the Green Party is environment and social issues? What are you going to do on the economy? Do you find yourself having to defend the fact that the Green Party does have an economic policy which has been put out there? Do you hear that a lot?
Well, when those, it's funny because those arguments are put forth by the people that don't have any basis for what they're putting forth. The Green Party, let's be simple. There are no jobs on a dead planet. As we spoke to earlier, a corporation will not willfully take on the liability with polluted lands. I've been hearing over, and I'm so tired of hearing from the other candidates the same old platforms. They're taking the same platforms they've had for decades, adding the word green into it every few other sentences and calling it a new platform. We need to focus on mass transit, green energy, light rail, walkable cities, national transit plan. You know, these things will boost the economy. If we don't keep the term sustainable from now on in front of the word economy, and every time we use the word economy, then the economy, by definition, will fail because it's not going to be sustainable. If something's not sustainable and maintainable, it will crash. And that will lead to the empty factories we see scattered all throughout this region.
How do you react when people say to you, well, you know, I like Elizabeth May, I like the Green Party candidate, but Elizabeth May's not going to be the Prime Minister next time? You'll hear that from people. I'm not
yes,
saying
of course, I hear it all the time. I'm so glad you're saying this.
And what do you say to people when they say, well, but if I vote, so I vote for you, what have I done with my vote?
Okay, and if you don't vote with your moral imperative, then what have you done with your vote anyways? Mm-hmm. If we don't vote with what we want, and we say, okay, well, I'm going to give up what I really care about so that I can vote for this other option, then you're not voting anyways. You're not really doing what you want to do. The Green Party doesn't need it. We're trying to abolish post-secondary tuition and debt over $10,000 retroactively. We don't need to have to be the governing party to do so. We just need a few MPs. If I'm in the House, believe me, you'll be hearing me very loud and clear. The Niagara region, Welland, Port Colborne, St. Catharines, Thorold, you'll be hearing those words all the time. That's why people loved Peter Cormos. It's not about the party. I'm going to be in there being vocal. And if we do that, if we talk about sustainability and maintainability, and it took about 4 debates before the other candidates even started using those terms. I made a nice joke about it yesterday in the debate. But again, the Green Party is the only party that's talking in this future forward-thinking way. So that's definitely not a discredit. For them to call it a discredit is only because they're not talking about it.
David, my thanks to you for coming in today.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure meeting you. David Clow of the Green Party in Niagara Centre. Tomorrow, the Liberal Party candidates in Niagara Centre, and then on Friday, all the candidates from Niagara Centre will be back for a debate at 1 o'clock right here on 610 CKTB as we continue our election coverage. Let's find out what's happening in our world this morning as we start into the news at 8 o'clock on